Welcome everybody to the Grow Ortho live stream. I am one of your hosts, Zach Dykes. I'm joined by Taylor Solberg, HIP's very own Director of Operations. Welcome to the show, Taylor.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am glad that you're here. We're going to have an awesome show, everybody, because we're talking about people versus systems, the ever going dance in any kind of practice. And Taylor, she is the Jedi master, if you will, of all of this. So it's going to be a great one, guys. Let us know where you're watching from and that you're excited about today's live stream. Hit the like button, hit the share with somebody that needs to get that balance in their life, because, you know, the Force is supposed to be balanced. Everybody's like, why does he keep talking about Star Wars? Because Star Wars is great, everybody. Star Wars is great. But today's stream shows you the real leaks draining your practice and how to fix them, spot missed opportunities, get true team buy-in, and align people with the systems that unlock growth without a single new lead. Sounds pretty awesome, in my opinion. What do you think, Taylor?
I'm excited for it. This is where I nerd out too. So bring on the Star Wars references and let's get into it.
So, Taylor, before we get into the meat and potatoes, as I say, tell everybody about yourself and your experience within the orthodontic industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually have over 4 years of experience in the orthodontic industry with HIP, helping practice grow, run more effectively. I really love orthodontics as an industry. It's so unique. You really are building confidence for an entire community, and it's such a serving industry. So being able to help other practices serve their community is just such a cool and unique experience.
Well, we're glad that you're here today, bringing your expertise, because you wouldn't be at the director position of operations if you weren't good at operations. So let's kind of set the frame and kind of intro all of this. What does a healthy balance of people and systems look like in a practice?
It's a really great question. Like you said, it is a dance. I feel like a healthy balance is really when your systems are enabling your people to shine instead of constraining them, right? We want our systems to provide the structure and clarity to operate out of, but the people bring the judgment. They bring personality. They're able to adapt in situations where a system could never. And it really just does create that excellent patient experience that's coming from your people, right? So the systems are there to support the people. The people are there to provide that experience.
Taylor, have you ever went and bowled and someone's using like the guardrails, the gutter ball guardrails?
Yeah, that should be me. I'm an awful bowler.
So, you know, you can have those, but it doesn't mean that you're going to get a strike, right?
Exactly.
And
But
it helps. And that's what systems are. But your team, if they're really good, they can get the strike instead of getting a few pins. So that's kind of like, I like to think of it. It's like, hey, we're putting some guardrails here. That way we're not, we're not hitting the gutter every time. We can actually get a few pins. And as we develop our people, we're going to be able to get more and more pins until we're hitting strikes. And it's just the guardrails to keep people in the lanes that they're supposed to be having.
Exactly. It's the container to operate out of. We're not trying to put, big obstacles down the lane so that they can't bowl straight.
Yeah, exactly. So I talked about, like plugging some leaks and everything. And if you've ever been in a boat and it has a hole in it, you're not going to be in that boat very long. You're going to be in whatever kind of body of water it is. So imagine that a practice is like rowing down a stream and it's a boat with holes. What are the most common holes that we see within a practice's boat?
It can be a couple of things. They tend to be very simple and consistent, but costly, right? So things like inconsistent follow-up, slow response times, having unclear roles and responsibilities with your team, or maybe even misaligned incentives for your team. Even the smallest leak is going to compound, right? So a missed call today, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but that can just mean it's a lost start tomorrow. So if you have all of these you know, everyone wants to have more leads, and that's going to be the end all be all, fix everything. But if you end up just having a ton of leads added into that leaky bucket, you're just going to lose them just as quickly as you're adding water to that bucket or to that boat.
Yeah, it's your practice could be a well-functioning machine, or it could be a colander where it's just there's water doesn't stay in a colander.
It does not.
So it's like if you're thinking about that, it's like, we talk about if a practice is miss one lead per day, that could easily lead up to $1 million in lost production per year.
Yeah.
And they're missing more than one a day.
Yeah, we can be generous, one a day, but yeah. They're normally falling through the cracks somewhere in the pipeline.
Yeah. So let's jump and go a little bit further on. A lot of practice owners think just, I got to get more leads. I got to make more leads. But why is that a trap that so many people fall into?
Yeah. So like we said, the more leads mindset, it sounds great. It's kind of like that shiny object, or like if you see a weight loss ad and it's like, this magic pill is going to make you lose weight. And you're like, is it? Or are there going to have to be other things I have to do in order to make this work? And typically that's the way it goes, right? So having more leads is not going to help if you're not converting the ones you already have, right? So follow-up is weak and that patient experience maybe isn't where we want it to be. New leads are definitely going to expose those weaknesses faster, make you more aware of where we need to kind of plug things up. But if you really want to scale, fix the leaks first.
So let's talk about some tools that could help with plugging, leads, leaks, and all of that. So take Practice Beacon Engage. What do you check first to spot the leaks?
That's a great question. Those are two awesome tools for visibility and auditing. So when you're going into creating systems, looking at and utilizing these tools is going to be key. It takes the guesswork out of what you're doing. So I always like to start personally at the beginning. So step one, kind of looking at what our scheduling percentages, moving on to like show rates, consult to start. And then from there, you can really dig. So if I see something where, scheduling percentage is low, then I'm going to kind of dig in a little bit further. Okay, what is our response time like? What is our follow-up procedure? How do we sound on the phone? And then we can make adjustments from there.
Yeah. And I think, answer rate, is a huge part of that. But if you sound like, what is the woman from Monsters Inc?
Mike Wazowski.
Yeah. If you sound like that, if you're putting people, you are the gatekeeper of everything. So you have to sound really good. And then follow up, making sure the show up rate is great. And then, is your TC actually converting? Is the finances the problem? Like, how do you need to structure that? So thinking about through all of those things, where would you start building operations and systems to design everything to kind of make the team's lives easier and start having them shine within the practice?
Yeah, so I typically like to, when I'm going into creating a system, obviously using tools like Practice Beacon or Gauge, and I can identify maybe where we have an area for opportunity. That kind of will help. And then when you're digging and you're looking into it, I do like to think about kind of taking a step back. When it comes to systems and operations, we can get really focused on the individual in the seat versus the seat as a whole and the role that we want that seat to be. And so I always like to take that step back and kind of take that perspective switch and look at it more holistically of what does someone in this role need? What do they need to shine and let their unique talents and abilities shine through? And maybe where are they spending their time right now that's kind of creating a space where they can't operate in their highest self, right? They're maybe getting bogged down with admin tasks, with tactical tasks, et cetera. Where is their time going? Where maybe it's not the best use of their abilities. And then from there, we can kind of gauge, okay, I have clear data now supporting my decision of, I know we're a little bit weak in this area. I know this person is spending their time doing X, Y, and Z, and that's not the most effective use of their time. now I can set up my system to help them with those items so that they can go on and do this.
And as you develop those systems, you can start seeing, oh, well, Veronica isn't really good at answering the phones, but she's really good at making sure all the columns are organized or this, that, or the other. And you start seeing, oh, well, if I slot her into this position, it takes the weight off, looking at that whole picture like you're talking about. And you start plugging and playing into people's actual strengths. And I know, like, with smaller practices, it's much harder because people are wearing so many hats, they're having to do so many things. But as you grow and you start thinking, it's like, well, my front desk shouldn't also be taking calls because they need to be greeting people. They need to be warm and inviting. And it's just that kind of simple thing where you're making it people shine.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think if you can think about it in terms of people. So that's definitely going to be the people on your team, like you said, where are they shining, but also your patients, right? That's really what matters. That's why we're all here. What's going to be the best experience for them? So like you said, if I'm a patient, I'm walking into a practice, and especially for the first time, and I'm trying to sign in and I'm getting one of these, I mean, I understand. We all understand we've been maybe in that position before, but is it the best experience we can provide? Are there things we can do to maybe elevate and make sure that every time a patient walks in that door, they feel welcome. They feel like we are here to support them.
Yeah, and we had Brooke Oliphant from Rise Up Coaching on, and she brought up a good point where there's a lot of redundancies in the process of getting a patient in, where they're telling you the same information over and over again. If people would just take a few seconds to look over the notes using Practice Beacon, putting those notes in there, and it will make things so much better when they get into the TC room and the TC isn't saying, so why are you here today? And then the doctor comes in, so why are you here today? And it's just, it's frustrating when that happens.
It's almost like that, like short-term pain, long-term gain. Like, it's going to take me an extra minute to put the notes in here, but it'll probably in total in our practice save us at least 20 minutes of asking the same redundant question.
Yeah. And, it's just those small little changes that are going to be great for you. But I want to go to the opposite side. What is a sign for a process is overcomplicated and actually hurting the patient experience?
Yeah, that definitely happens. I mean, it happens here at HIP too. I feel like we've all been in a situation where maybe we made something a little bit too complex or overcomplicated, and it may sound silly, but to me, the way it signifies to me that this is overcomplicated is it feels difficult. Like, it feels funky. In my mind, I think like the gears aren't quite working together. They're almost like grinding as they spin, and it doesn't fit. That's normally a telltale sign when I'm like, man, this just doesn't feel like it's going smoothly. That's normally my first indication that, okay, this is probably a little bit too overcomplicated. If the team is coming to you asking, what do I do next? That's typically a sign that it's overcomplicated. If your patients are feeling lost in the process and they're unclear, they lack certainty, again, probably a good indication that your systems are a little bit too overcomplicated and maybe we just need to simplify.
Yeah, a good way to kind of gauge with patients is if through the process they stop responding. And you see that happening more and more. You see an uptick of that after putting in a new system that's patient facing. That's a great way to say, I think we might have kind of stepped into a bear trap here. Let's see what we can do. And, like a machine has to have lubricant. There has to be an easy flow to it, because if you don't change your oil for a very long time, your car starts to overheat. That's the same thing with your practice. People are going to get frustrated. They're going to get discouraged. They're going to stop even doing the systems, and they're going to just start kind of doing whatever they think is best. But when you see those things, like, okay, well, I'm listening. Yeah, they keep coming to me. What do I do next? They're playing on their phones, whatever it is. Like you can see these things happening in real time and it's uncomfortable. I'm going to be honest. It's going to be very uncomfortable. But since you're the leader of the practice, you might be the office manager, you might be the doctor or whatever it is, be proactive. Don't just let it go.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big key. I feel like trust your gut. When something doesn't feel right, look into it. You know, maybe you're having an off week and yeah, you missed the bar on that, but that's normally not the case. Like when sometimes when I'm feeling off on something, or even I'll go and ask the team. I'm like, hey, like I don't know, I'm looking at this. It just doesn't feel like it's going smoothly. How do you guys feel about this? You get so much insight where they will be like, no, we love this. It's great. It's working for us in X, Y, and Z, but maybe this area could use improvement. This is where we're getting stuck. And that feedback is so valuable to how you set up your systems. Having the team come back and kind of say, okay, this is what's working. Here's what's not working. Taking that feedback into consideration and implementing it. Not only will it improve your systems, but again, your team is now bought on. They know you're here to support them.
And that goes into kind of evolving instead of just staying locked into a system. And I think one of the big things is to not have your ego locked into a system or whatever it is that you've developed. Like you cannot get hurt feelings when something doesn't work. It's really easy to, but you have to think of it as, I want my practice to succeed. I want my team to succeed. And sometimes you're going to hear those things. It's like, yeah, this isn't working. And you have to kind of, might have to suck it up a little bit, but it's something that you need to hear so your team doesn't resent coming to work every day.
Yeah, sometimes you can get a little lost in the weeds of building something out and making it this thing that, look, I made this. This is a reflection of me as a leader. That you forget kind of the goal. The actual goal of the system is to help the team. And if you can keep that as the forefront of in your mind when you are creating these things, it'll definitely keep you on course. It kind of keeps that ego in check of like, this is to serve them. This is not where I need to show how great I am at building out a complex system.
So let's say we got a system in place, Taylor, and it's going well, but how do we keep evolving it, improving it instead of, it's locked up in the dusty binder that's in, the office manager's desk that we haven't looked at in 5 years?
Oh, yeah, that's where things go to die. I think number one is starting with audit regularly. That's a huge part of even like what I do here at HIP is auditing. And it's from the smallest of, we rolled out a new task template and I'm just making sure it's getting used properly, and it can be obviously built from there. But auditing regularly to see when things are breaking down, things aren't getting done. Like we said, if a system or a tool is not getting used, typically it could be too complex. We didn't get enough team buy-in. Either way, it's worth revisiting. Listening to your team, so getting feedback from them, adjusting accordingly. They're the ones that use the systems primarily, so they kind of are the expert when they provide feedback. Definitely utilize it. And like you said, don't be afraid to adjust. If it's not working, change it. It's totally fine. It's not a reflection of you. Systems are meant to be living documents. If they're just a piece of paper you print them on, they're going to be outdated the second you put it in the binder anyways. So throw the binder out of your office and just accept that these are going to be living documents. And then, like you said too, this is a big piece, make them accessible. If they are not easily accessible, people are not going to use them. Like if your team does not know where this is stored and you expect them to go and look at it on a daily or regular basis, they're not going to do that. It's like that messy Tupperware drawer in your house. If it's not easy to find the right container, people are not going to bother grabbing it, or they're just going to like toss it back when they're done, making it even worse. Systems should be easy to access. It's like finding the right container with the matching lid every single time.
Yeah, it's finding the matching socks and all of that. And one of the things that I think people really get bogged down with is they feel, you look at an SOP and it feels daunting.
Oh yeah.
And I think if you break down your SOPs in the right way, it could feel empowering. So before we get into people versus processes, can you tell me a little bit about like what is a good way to develop an SOP? If for people who don't know, it's um tell them what it is. My mind just went blank.
Yeah. So an SOP is going to be your team's guideline on how to do a specific task or project, essentially. I'm going to stress guideline again because it shouldn't be the step-by-step hand holding, which we have done. It's a screenshot of every single button they have to press, and all of a sudden one button is now renamed and they don't know what to do. Don't do that to yourselves. It's just like the bumper rails for bowling. So it's supposed to be a container and a guideline for them to follow. It's the path, but it's not every single step hand holding. We still want them to have autonomy and have judgment when they're utilizing an SOP. So it really should just be a guideline to get them to the goal, throwing in some tips and tricks. But you definitely don't want to do the hand holding step by step. Here's when you breathe. Here's when you go to the bathroom. Save yourself the headache.
Yeah, and I love Loom and that you can do things, but don't just rely on, like you said, okay, here's the Loom, these are the buttons that you press, because things are getting updated, and as soon as you record that, you're never going to want to go back and go through that process again. So if you do a Loom, turning into a actual written out version so you can quickly go in and change that when it does come time. Standard operating procedure.
Standard operating procedures, yeah.
Yeah. There we go. We got it, guys. We
got it. Slowly. It's the end of the day. It's a Friday.
It's a Friday, y'all. But I think it's important to understand because, man, I've looked at some SOPs and I'm like, this feels daunting, and this feels, I can just do it myself. You know, I can figure out a way to do this.
Yeah, and that's it will actually work against you if you make them daunting. It's not even just like people like you were like, I don't even want to read this. I'm just going to go and figure it out. But then you really do create a team that's so dependent on a step-by-step process that they lose judgment, and you stop cultivating a culture of we trust you, make the right call for what you see fit in that situation, because they're so reliant, and you're ingraining them basically to be like, I will tell you every step of every day what to do. Yep. And that's not the culture you want. That's not the team you want. You want a team that comes in with their strengths and their personality and their judgment to make the best decision.
Yeah, you want to foster a culture of critical thinking. And if you have somebody that comes in that has critical thinking, and you've got so many systems that kind of beats that down to where they're having to constantly ask questions, you might as well just do the job yourself. That's what you're telling them, is like, you're here because I need extra hands, but it's actually, I can do the job, but I don't trust you.
Yep. 100%. And you see it. It'll happen fast. So if you guys have those complex SOPs or written out instructions, definitely take a step back and evaluate. Make sure it's more of the guideline. The breadcrumbs to get there is kind of how I think about it. And like you said, Loom's great, but we also do the written instructions. Just people have different learning styles too. So I think keeping that in mind will help as well. And Scribe, have you used Scribe before? Scribe is
I have. That's pretty dope.
I like how you can go back and change it, whereas with Loom, it's kind of painful, but Scribe is pretty easy to go back and adjust.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool resources. There's one that I saw recently. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it literally will like create like a little document of like where you click and everything. I know we were talking about clicks, but it was just a simple, easy, like free tool. I don't remember the name of it, but it is pretty cool. But Scribe is pretty dope.
Scribe is cool. I like it.
So let's jump into people versus processes. I know we kind of hit some of this, but I want to go a little bit deeper with you on it. Why can't you out-process a people problem?
Systems depend on the people following it. So if someone doesn't have the right attitude or training or accountability, layering on more checklists is not going to solve anything. Trust me, we've tried. It doesn't work. And honestly, what ends up happening when you adjust your systems to fit someone who's just not the right fit, it ends up frustrating your top performers, and they feel too constrained, too restricted. They lose that autonomy, like we were saying, and now your entire team is suffering because you basically suffocate an entire team for one individual. So the truth is, a system can't create motivation or judgment. It supports talent, and it cannot replace it.
That's good. So how do you know it's like the playbook, the processes, or the player? Like, how do you know when it's like, oh, this person is not he's not going to make it?
Yeah. I think looking for patterns is an easy way to do that, or easier way to identify that. If multiple peoples are struggling in the same area, that usually indicates it's a process issue, and you need a better playbook. If it's just one person that's consistently falling behind while others are thriving, it's more likely a people issue. I think it also comes back to that kind of gut instinct that we're talking about. You can kind of feel it when it's maybe a person, not a process.
Yeah. And I know Dr. Bryce talks a lot about like spot checking. It's like if you're having somebody that's, dropping the ball, having tons of issues, it might be like you said earlier, it might be they're just having a bad week, but you can't have a bad month or bad 6 months. Like, you've got an attitude problem, you've got a motivation problem that you need to, you got to take the bad apple out, or it's going to spoil the bunch. And then you're having to hire a whole new team. So you've got to be very careful to notice these things and like, hey, I see that this is going on. Like, tell me, like, why is this such an issue? Like, you don't come off, condescending or anything like that. You come in very curious. You come in like, hey, this is going on. How can I help you be successful? And then that's also their way of like, hey, I see that you're not doing a good job. It's time to tighten up, and if they give you good feedback, it's like, oh, well, let me actually think about that. Or if it's just like, oh yeah, like my computer's glitchy or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, you can tell when people are not actually like thinking through things.
100%, 100%. And we always like to give people the benefit of the doubt. Like you said, it could be a bad day, a bad week. When you're evaluating it, it's typically over. You're seeing it for an extended period of time. But what we really like to do, if someone's struggling in one area, I'm not just going to tell them one time and say, well, I told you the one time, you should know that's on you, right? There's going to be a constant pattern of like circling back with this person and ensuring, okay, hey, we talked about this. How are you feeling? Maybe that's I demonstrate, you repeat, I give you feedback in live time, and then you're going to go and do it. And then I'll give you feedback on that. And there's going to be a constant feedback loop where, I'm giving you this opportunity to kind of step into this role and knock it out of the park. I always want to give people everything they can to succeed. But again, you can lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about onboarding talent. What's one step when doing that actually empowers them through the systems that you've created?
Clarity. Provide clarity from day one. They should know on day one, what is my role? How do I win? And what do I do when I get stuck? And a strong onboarding system will kind of create that path. And again, still leaves room for them to bring their personality and their strengths. So setting clear expectations and making it digestible and easy for them, right? We used to throw our library of SOPs at new hires and hope for the best. It didn't work out so well. But we ended up just making a very clear day-by-day training plan for the first couple of weeks for each role. And all those talented people that we worked so hard to acquire, we're actually retaining now because they don't feel overwhelmed by this resource library we were throwing at them.
So what does clear expectations like sound like?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I always like to kind of cover, well, and this also comes in the hiring process. So maybe even I'll take a step back. They should be clear on the role pretty much for the most part, at least salary, when they are working, the responsibilities at a high level before they even get started. So your hiring team is essential for that. Making sure that there's expectations even before they get started is key. And then when they come on, I really like to give them, again, we're not trying to overwhelm, we're stripping it down to the basic role responsibilities. I'm going through, hey, this, I know you already know this. I'm going to repeat it because, again, repetition is key when you're training anyone that's new or training them on a new skill. I'm going to cover again what the role responsibilities are. And then I am going to let them know what I expect of them over the course of their training period. So we do typically 30, 60, 90 days. These are the KPIs I am looking for. So this is going to tell me if you have met expectations. This is the grading criteria I'm looking at. So you're very clear. It's not, oh, well, I kind of feel like you're not doing a great job. I have clear indicators that this is what we're looking for in this area. This is what I expect to know or expect you to do by X date. And we kind of run through that together. And then I give them the tools and the resources to succeed. Typically what we have seen, we'll give an outline, a training plan for a new team member as far as what we expect in their first 30 or 60, 90 days. Most of our key talented individuals went way faster, right? So they're doing on day 30, they're doing their day 60 KPIs and they're meeting those expectations. They typically kind of take the reins and they'll roll with it, but they have a clear path and roadmap to follow.
And I want, practices to understand that is when you bring somebody on, even before you hire them, before you post anything, you need to know what they're coming in to do for your practice. So many times people get hired and they don't know what's going on and they get frustrated. And then the practice owners get frustrated because they're not performing. And it's all about communication. Everything in life is about communication. So you having clear expectations, they know exactly, like Taylor was talking about, having something like this is going to take time. Like, just to be honest, this will take time, trial and error, but every time you do it, you're going to get better at training your people. And then when you get those, as Dave Ramsey calls them, those thoroughbreds, those A players in your practice, they're going to want to stay because they feel like you're actually setting them up to succeed instead of, well, I feel this and I feel that. I'm a kinesthetic person and I feel a lot, but I like to feel like I'm set up for success.
Yeah, absolutely. That goes down to even the job listing too. That's something we spend a lot of time on even before we're hiring, we want to hire this new role. We go back and we look at, do the role responsibilities and requirements still fit our expectations? Because they change. You guys will outline a role and then 2 months later, it's going to be different. It's just like your other systems. They're going to live and breathe and evolve. And looking at that so that you are attracting the right talent. You're not wasting your time or anyone else's time when you're interviewing because you have expectations where you are both on the same page.
So getting that buy-in, how do you figure out what motivates each team member?
Oh, that's a good one. It is, it's listening more than you talk. I always think people's actions will tell you what drives them if you pay attention, even sometimes more than their words. Especially if you're acquiring younger talent, they're still evolving. So their motivating factors are going to change. A lot of that comes subtly through their actions. So if you're listening and paying attention, you can kind of pick up on those things. And then if it's not obvious, ask them directly. And it's going to be different, right? Some team members, they light up when they are just recognized. If you just sing their praise in front of everyone else, they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I'm amazing. You're just going to see that joy. Some people are really hungry for having a growth opportunity, knowing you have a growth plan for them and you're helping build them and grow them as an individual. Some people are financially motivated and driven. I think the key is just not falling into the trap where you assume everyone is wired the same way.
Yes. 1,000% agree. Understanding, I think one of the easiest ways to do that is, understanding people's learning styles.
Yes.
I think that's going to be huge for anyone. If you want to go down that rabbit hole, look up the VAK, the VAC model, and go down that, and it will change how you communicate with others, and they're going to be able to buy in so much better and feel like you actually see them, and when they communicate with you that they're actually heard. It's huge. Trust me. Go look up Julie Neese, Julie 911.
Yes.
She's great. But that is a great way to go into that. And you were talking about behavior, and Dr. John Delaney, he talks about that behavior is a language. And if you look at behavior, you see the things that people do. It's not just what they say, it's what they do. Behavior is a language, and you can see where people are. Are they bought in? Are they on the edge? Like, do they trust you? Like, you can see all of these things when they're responding to you. So, Taylor, how do you actually reward the right behavior so the buy-in like sticks? It's like Gorilla Glue.
Yes, buy-in is everything. Everything. It is essential. Without it, the best system will fall flat. It will not work. And this is true too, especially, we talked about setting clear expectations. Expectations change, right? We sometimes there's a shift and the team needs to pivot, and maybe they have a new responsibility. Maybe they're joining HIP and they're going to start using a CRM for the first time, right? Expectations do change, and having buy-in from your team is the only way any system will work. So I think the key, and something I really try to keep in mind, is making sure people see the why, and also I like to call it the what's in it for me, almost right away. If you can connect the behavior with an actual benefit that they can see, you're already kind of halfway there, right? They understand that this logically makes sense, or there's a benefit for them, or there's a benefit for patients or the practice for us to do it this way. And then from there, tying rewards directly to the behaviors that you're trying to encourage is key. Sometimes we can kind of forget, and we get lost when we're creating like maybe a bonus structure or something, and we forget, what are we trying to encourage? What behavior do we really want from the team right now? And that can be very, very simple. It could be like a short-term bonus incentive, or a team contest, or even like a simple prize for hitting specific goals. I think making sure that your rewards are in alignment with the behavior that you're looking for is key. And kind of like we mentioned, don't overlook recognition. That's an easy thing to do. You're like, oh yeah, well, we have this contest in place, so I'm not going to praise or recognize. Recognition goes a really long way with people. So if you catch people doing the right thing, or they're doing exactly what you want, reward it immediately. It doesn't have to be the financial bonus. It could be just public praise, a handwritten note, just a small gesture. But the point is, you're just trying to reinforce that behavior that you want to see repeated.
Taylor, as you know, I was a teacher before I got into all of this, and vicarious reinforcement is one of the best ways to get people to buy into something. I'd have students, and they'd be doing whatever, they'd be sitting around talking before we'd start rehearsal or whatever, and if somebody was in their spot ready to go, like they were watching me, I'd be like, thank you so much, Anders, for being there, being ready. And then everybody else would, I'm ready to go, and that right there, like, you're praising people, but you're also saying that is what I expect from everyone else. And they're like, oh, I want to be I want to be praised. Praise me, you know, and that's a huge, easy little thing. And like early on, when we first started doing our first courses here, when I started, Luke wrote a handwritten note. I still have it. 2 years afterwards, he's like, "Thanks for all that you're doing. You're helping us, blah, blah, blah." I still have that. And I look at it every now and then when I need a little extra, like,
A little love.
a little love, and it's like a handwritten note for Luke, the CEO of a company that is doing all of these things. That's huge. What if the doctor did that? A little, it would be exponential for that person. And I think that kind of stuff, because people, like, yes, money is great. People love money, but if you actually talk to them in the right language, oh man, it's so powerful.
It's huge. Everyone kind of jumps straight to the money aspect, but recognition and recognizing right behavior. I also was a teacher too before HIP. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, before I got into marketing, that was so it's funny how similar, and not in like a disrespectful way, but it is funny how similar it is teaching kids to just interacting with any adult human. It's the same. If you treat every adult like they're just a really big kid, your relationships are going to be excellent. You feel a lot of love, patience, and kindness, and it goes a long way.
So I know we talked a little bit about this, inspecting what you expect, and how often should leaders within a practice review the processes without micromanaging? Like every week we got to add a new thing. Like, how do you kind of balance that?
Yeah, that's a good. It's just like the people and process thing. It is a dance, but your team will not respect. Very rarely, I should say, respect what you're not inspecting. So if you just say, "Hey, go do this new thing this week," and expect it to stick without ever looking back into it, it probably will not be successful. It does take a little bit of review. I found the micromanaging part for me is really down to like communication, and how you're communicating with the team about certain things. As far as review process or cadence, I really like the weekly check-in. I just feel like it's structured enough to catch things early on before it snowballs, but it's not so constraining or micromanaging that they can't even operate day to day. For us, honestly, at HIP, shifting to our weekly meeting cadence where we have weekly metrics has changed the way that we communicate with the team. I feel like we took our big goals and we broke those down into weekly metrics. So the team sees exactly where these numbers are coming from, what they're going towards. It's a very clear picture of the why. And it's very clear expectations. Here are the weekly scoreboard metrics. And from there, those numbers are owned by the team. It's not me going to the team saying, "Hey, this metric isn't where we want it. What are you doing?" They come prepared. They own that now. They come prepared with updates and solutions. So having your leaderships or your team leads especially come to you and owning their teams, it just kind of changes, has this big shift where you're giving them autonomy, accountability. The tone of communication you have with them is just completely transformed. It's puts us on the same team, and now we're working towards this goal together. It's not me versus you.
Yeah, it's you're going alongside them instead of dragging them behind you. Yeah. And I think that's huge. Like, you think about like an ox, if you have like a team of ox that have the yoke that's on both of them, and when they're both aligned and they're moving forward together, it's comfortable. Like, the yoke isn't like this hard thing, and they're able to go much further. But if one of the oxes is in front and one's behind, it becomes painful for both sides of that relationship, and they're not really making progress.
No, and it feels really hard to make progress too.
Yeah, and it's like, if people aren't, doing that dance, getting into that, then it is going to be painful. And it goes back to some of the things that we talked about earlier in the episode is, checking if it's the playbook or the team, like where are things falling apart, and being curious and humble when those things are happening. But Taylor, I want to jump into one metric that you always inspect. What's one thing that you always look at when you're dealing with systems and all of that?
One metric that I always look at. It could be, wow. I really do feel like, well, if we're talking about at a practice in particular, I mean, can I make it up and call it like the patient journey score? I know it's like kind of bending the rules. It's not one, but I really like to see as high level as I can what's happening A to Z. So especially when it comes to evaluating our partners and practices, who's interested, who schedules, who shows, who starts, who becomes a raving fan and is attracting more patients to our practice, because that's also just as important. I like to see where there's specific stages where things could fall is essentially what I like to look at. I feel like it's a really good indicator if, for us and at HIP, here's a great example, sales are up, and then we notice that 2 weeks after onboarding, people are wanting to leave. That's a pretty good indicator. If that's like a significant stage before they're in like account management and we're working with our partner success and our practice growth advisors, something's happening there that's not working, not quite fitting. Why are we losing people here? So I do like to kind of think of it as everything in like a stage, and where could we potentially lose people from stage to stage, and then from there dig in further.
Yeah, the handoff is very important. Like you think about like a relay race, like that is the point where you either gain time or you lose time on like the people that are around you. And it's, thinking about a practice, it's like, how's the handoff from check-in to the TCs or records, or check in to the clinical side? Like, are they sitting there for 30, 40 minutes? It's all of these little things that like, how is it going from the TC to the doctor? Is the TC saying, hey, Charles over here, he's, really looking forward to fixing his overjet or whatever it is, and like the doctor's like, I got it now, it's the overjet that he's focused on. It's those little things that if you get good at it, you're going to be able to do those handoffs pretty easily.
Yes, it makes such a big difference. And going back to what we were talking about earlier with the notes, okay, I have a phone call with a patient, they let me know what their goals are for treatment. How good does it feel being a patient when you come into a practice and they reference what you already said? To me, it's like, oh, I'm like blown away. It just gives me goosebumps. I'm like, oh my gosh, you care about me. Thank you. Like, I just feel so amazing to know that you took, even if it was just 5 seconds, to breathe on, hey, this is her deal. This is her situation.
Yeah, because you go to a regular medical practice, you call in, okay, I need an appointment. What's going on? Well, I'm having, ingrown toenail, whatever it is, I don't know. And they're like, okay. And then you come in and the nurse practitioner's like, oh, what's going on? Well, I'm having, ingrown toenail or whatever. And then the doctor comes in, it's like, so what's going on? And it's like, I have a second hand growing out of my back or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, it could change each time, but it's like when you really know how to do that, it's very, very impressive. So when you're talking about people and systems, how do you make like the audits of the team and the systems about coaching instead of like fearful?
Yeah, that comes down to huge things that Julie talked about, but framing and positioning is really big for that piece. You also have to believe it, right? You have to have that intention. That starts with your intention first, and then how you frame and position it. I always like to start with, how can we make this easier for you? How can we make this easiest for the team? And how can we make this better for partners or better for patients? I mean, even when we hire new team members, I think you can sense a little bit of unease when we tell people we're time tracking, for sure. You can kind of see them a little bit squirm and hesitation and fear of, how we're going to use that information, but we make it very clear we're not keeping score to punish, we're keeping score to improve. But then again, you have to put your money where your mouth is. You actually have to follow through. So you need to use the data to make a change to help the team. That's how you get that feedback loop where they understand, okay, the system and the audits are to serve me. If someone's time is being spent on tasks that aren't the best use of their skills, you fix it and you prove to the team that these audits are here to support them.
Yeah, I remember when I came on, it was like, oh, you have to track time. And I was like,
yeah.
I was like, all right. And, as I've gotten more into it, it's like, okay, I know like a regular episode is going to take me 45 minutes to edit, to get everything ready. It's not anything crazy or anything like that. I know I can get it done within that amount of time. Now, if it's a longer episode or there was this, that, or the other, I can gauge how much time and be able to put that within my week, and it's not taking up my entire week, and it's a challenge to me as well. It's like, can I do it? Can I get it faster? That sort of deal, because then I get to work on other cool things that isn't just, regular this, that, or the other. And I think that's a good way. You could even like, hey, let's see who's the fastest at like cleaning appliances or whatever it is, or setting up the this, that, or the other. Like you can make it like, people love gamification on anything. And it's not even like, oh, you're going to get a $5 this, that, or the other. It's like, hey, let's see who's the best at getting records. And, you could see, oh, well, Caitlin over here, great at getting records. Guess what? You just found your new records person.
Yeah.
It's just little things like that.
What you do with the information and how you frame it it's the key to that, to making them, to reduce fear. Even with our practice growth advisors and our partner success team, when they're on calls with partners, we were, just so from our back end, when we're looking at time tracking, this is what happens. We're looking at it and we're like, man, the call itself took 30, 45 minutes. They're spending an hour and a half of admin tasks. Like, that's painful for me. I know they don't want to do the admin task, and they're spending more time doing that than actually talking to partners, which is what we're all about, is creating a great experience for them. It's all about the partners not in alignment with what we want. And from there, we get to make all sorts of cool stuff where you're using AI and automations to do the work for the team. And man, it makes them feel great too. They know that you're there solely to make their lives easier, make their world easier. They can operate and just let those skills shine through. Great way to create buy-in.
Taylor, last question of the episode. What's the one action you want listeners and viewers to take this week to improve their people systems and their system systems?
I would say pick one of each, or you could just pick one process in your practice. Maybe follow-up, scheduling, converting. I would say pick one where you're kind of saying, this, I never knew this, but yeah, this does feel painful to me. Pick that one just for kicks, try it out, audit it, and then take a really hard look, and actually ask yourself, is it helping our team shine? Is it making our patients feel cared for? And if it's not, just make one small improvement, and see if it has an impact. See what that impact is.
And your team is going to be like, oh, they're actually listening. Yeah.
They're here for me.
And they're going to come in way more excited every day if you keep doing that. Well, everybody, that is our stream today. Make sure to like and subscribe to our weekly podcast, the Grow Ortho Podcast, to hear more content that can help you grow your practice. Mark Twain said it best: the secret of getting ahead is getting started. So get out there and get started making the changes you want to see in your practice now. This has been Zach
and Taylor.
Thank you for watching the Grow Ortho live stream.